Every single summer, millions of beautiful flower gardens die from too much love. Not neglect, love. Gardeners standing over their petunias at 1 in the afternoon, hose in hand, absolutely convinced they're saving their plants, when in reality, they're slowly cooking the roots, inviting fungus into the foliage, and training those flowers to become weaker with every passing week. And here's the part that stings a little. The fix costs nothing. It doesn't require new equipment, new fertilizer, or a landscaping crew. It requires knowing 3 things that professional growers have understood for generations, and that somehow never made it onto the back of a seed packet. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly when to water, exactly how to water, and exactly how deep that water needs to travel, whether your flowers are in the ground or sitting in containers on a baking hot patio. And I promise you, once you understand the why behind each of these, you will never look at your garden hose the same way again. My name is James Scott, and this is Golden Age Gardening, where we take the tried and true wisdom of decades past and pair it with what modern horticultural science has confirmed. If you find value in what we're doing here, that subscribe button down below is the best way to make sure you never miss a week with us, and it genuinely helps this little channel grow. Now, let's get your flowers through this heat. Why summer heat changes everything. Before we get into the timing and the technique, we need to understand what's actually happening to a flowering plant when the temperature climbs past 90 degrees. Because once you understand the mechanics, all the advice that follows will click into place like puzzle pieces. A plant is essentially a living plumbing system. Water enters through the roots, travels up through the stems, and exits through tiny pores on the leaves called stomata. This process is called transpiration, and it's how a plant cools itself, the same way we sweat. On a mild spring day, a plant loses water at a comfortable, manageable rate. But during a heat wave, that plumbing system goes into overdrive. A mature flowering plant can lose several times its normal water volume in a single scorching afternoon. The leaves are pumping moisture into the air faster than the roots can pull it from the soil. Now here's where it gets interesting. When a plant senses it's losing water faster than it can replace it, it takes defensive action. It closes those stomata. It curls its leaves inward. It droops. And this is the moment where so many well-meaning gardeners make their first mistake, because they see that drooping and they interpret it as a desperate cry for water. Sometimes it is, but very often it isn't. That wilting is a survival strategy, not a distress signal. The plant is deliberately reducing the amount of leaf surface exposed to the sun, exactly like you pulling your arms in and hunching your shoulders when you walk through a cold wind. It's protecting itself. Landscape professionals will tell you that a plant can be wilted dramatically at 2 in the afternoon and have perfectly adequate moisture sitting in the soil around its roots. Come back at 7 that evening, and those same flowers have perked back up without a single drop from your hose. So the first mental shift I need you to make is this. Your eyes can lie to you in the heat. The soil tells the truth. The leaves tell a story. We'll come back to how to read the soil properly in just a bit, because it's one of the most useful skills any flower gardener can develop. Watering secret number 1, the golden morning window. Let's settle the great debate once and for all, because if you've spent any time reading gardening forums, you've seen the arguments. Morning people versus evening people, each side convinced the other is killing their gardens. Professional landscapers and irrigation specialists are remarkably united on this one. During a heat wave, the best time to water your flowers is early morning, specifically in that window between roughly 5 and 9 in the morning. Why does this window matter so much? 3 reasons, and each one is worth understanding. First, evaporation. When you water at dawn, the air is at its coolest point of the entire 24-hour cycle, and the sun hasn't yet begun hammering the soil surface. Water applied during this window has time to soak down, spread out, and reach the root zone before the heat of the day starts pulling moisture back out of the ground. Water applied at noon, by contrast, can lose an enormous portion of its volume to evaporation before it ever travels an inch below the surface. You could be pouring gallons onto your flower beds and delivering only a fraction of that to the roots. That's wasted water, wasted money on your water bill, and wasted effort on your part. Second, the plant's daily rhythm. Plants do most of their heavy lifting during daylight hours. Photosynthesis, growth, flower production, all of it runs on the day shift. When you water in the early morning, you're essentially handing your flowers a full canteen right before they head out on a long, hot march. They enter the most stressful part of the day fully hydrated, with moisture already positioned in the root zone, where they can draw on it hour after hour as the temperature climbs. Third, and this one is criminally underrated, disease prevention. Any water that splashes onto leaves, stems, or flower petals during a morning watering session will dry off quickly once the sun rises. That matters enormously because fungal diseases, powdery mildew, botrytis, leaf spot, all the ugly stuff that ruins a flower display, they all need one thing to get established: prolonged moisture sitting on plant tissue. Morning watering gives that moisture only a brief window before it evaporates. The fungus never gets its foothold. Now I know what some of you are thinking. 5 to 9 in the morning? I have a job, I have kids, I am not setting an alarm to go water zinnias. And I hear you completely. This is exactly where a simple hose timer or a basic drip irrigation setup earns its keep. You can pick up a battery-operated timer for the cost of a couple of flats of annuals, screw it onto your spigot, connect a soaker hose or drip line, and your garden gets watered at 6 in the morning while you're still asleep. We'll talk more about those systems near the end, because they pair beautifully with everything else in this guide. If a timer isn't in the cards and mornings truly don't work for you, don't despair. An imperfect watering schedule that you can actually maintain beats a perfect schedule that falls apart after a week. Just move as close to that morning window as your life allows. The midday mistake that cooks your flowers. We touched on wilting earlier, but let's talk directly about what happens when you water at high noon, because this is the mistake I see most often, and it's almost always done with the best intentions. You look out the window at 1 o'clock. Your hydrangeas look like they've given up on life. Every leaf is drooping, so you rush out with the hose and give everything a generous shower, foliage and all, hoping to revive them. Here's what actually happened in that moment. Most of the water you sprayed evaporated before it penetrated the soil. The little that did soak in barely moistened the top inch, which, as we'll discuss shortly, can actually do more harm than good over time. And the water you sprayed over the leaves? On an intensely sunny day, water droplets sitting on foliage can act like tiny magnifying lenses, focusing sunlight and creating small scorched spots on leaves that were already stressed. You went out to rescue your flowers and came back inside having burned them. The kinder, smarter response to midday wilting is patience, paired with observation. Check the soil a few inches down near the base of the plant. If it's still moist at that depth, the plant has what it needs and will recover on its own once the sun drops. If it's bone dry down there, then yes, by all means, give it water. That's a plant in true drought stress, and hydration beats perfect timing every single time. But deliver that water low and slow, directly at the base of the plant, at soil level, keeping the foliage dry. Never a sprinkle over the top in full sun. For container flowers on a blazing patio, you have another option the in-ground garden doesn't: mobility. If your potted geraniums or fuchsias are wilting hard every single afternoon, consider shifting those containers to a spot that gets afternoon shade, even just for the worst weeks of summer. A pot that bakes in 8 hours of direct sun may only need 4 or 5 to bloom beautifully, and that reduced exposure can cut its water demands nearly in half. What about evening watering? The honest answer. Here's where I want to give you a more nuanced answer than most videos will, because the truth about evening watering depends on where you live. The old warning goes like this: never water at night, because wet foliage sitting in cool, still evening air is an open invitation to fungus, mildew, and rot. And in humid climates, that warning is absolutely valid. If you garden somewhere like the Gulf Coast, the Southeast, or anywhere the humidity stays thick and heavy overnight, evening watering keeps everything damp for 8, 10, 12 hours straight. That is fungal paradise. In those regions, morning watering isn't just preferable, it's close to essential for keeping diseases at bay. But if you garden in a dry climate, the high desert, much of the Mountain West, inland areas where the humidity drops sharply after sunset, the calculation changes. In those places, the evening air itself pulls moisture off leaf surfaces fairly quickly, and pathogens don't get the sustained wet conditions they need to flourish. An early evening watering there is a perfectly reasonable second choice, and during a brutal heat wave, some dry climate gardeners even split their watering, a deep morning session and a lighter early evening top-up for the thirstiest containers. So the honest guidance is this: morning is the universal safe answer everywhere. Evening is an acceptable backup in dry climates, done early enough that any splashed foliage dries before full darkness, and always aimed at the soil rather than over the leaves. In humid regions, stick to mornings and let your plants go into the night dry up top. Quick pause here. If this kind of straight-talking, no-nonsense breakdown is helpful to you, tap that like button. It tells me you want more of this style, and it helps other flower lovers find the channel. Watering secret number 2. Deep watering, the technique that builds unstoppable roots. Now we come to the heart of this entire guide, the technique that separates gardens that merely survive summer from gardens that sail through it. It's called deep watering, and once you understand it, you'll realize that most of the watering happening in neighborhoods across the country is doing plants a quiet disservice. Deep watering means applying water slowly and thoroughly enough that moisture travels well past the soil surface and down into the full root zone, typically 6 to 8 inches deep or more, for flowering perennials and annual beds. Compare that to what usually happens: a quick pass with the hose every evening, wetting the top inch of soil and calling it done. Here's why the difference matters so profoundly. Roots are opportunists. They grow toward water. If moisture only ever exists in the top inch of your soil, your flowers will concentrate their entire root systems in that top inch. And what happens to the top inch of soil during a heat wave? It becomes a furnace. It's the first layer to dry out, the first to overheat, and the layer most exposed to every swing of weather. You've inadvertently trained your flowers to keep all their lifelines in the most dangerous neighborhood in the garden. Shallow watering creates shallow roots. Shallow roots create fragile plants. Fragile plants wilt at the first sign of stress, need constant babysitting, and collapse entirely the weekend you go out of town. Deep watering flips that entire script. When water regularly penetrates 6, 8, 10 inches down, roots follow it downward. Down there, the soil stays cooler. Moisture lingers for days instead of hours. Temperature swings even out. A flower with a deep root system has access to a reservoir the surface-rooted plant next door can only dream of. It shrugs off a hot afternoon. It handles a missed watering. It blooms harder because it isn't spending all its energy on survival. There's an added summer bonus too. A deeply watered plant effectively banks moisture in its root zone, a savings account it can draw on during the most stressful hours of the day. That stored reserve is often the difference between flowers that droop by 10 in the morning and flowers that hold their form until late afternoon. How to actually deep water: low, slow, and thorough. The technique itself is beautifully simple, but it demands one thing modern life is short on: patience. Set your hose to a slow trickle, or better yet, use a soaker hose or drip line, and let water seep into the soil at the base of the plant over an extended period. For a flower bed, that might mean 30 to 45 minutes of slow soaking, rather than 3 minutes of blasting. The goal is for water to enter the soil no faster than the soil can absorb it. If you see water pooling or running off across the surface, you're applying it faster than the ground can drink, and everything running off is wasted. If you're watering by hand with a can or hose, use the pulse method. Water a plant thoroughly, move on to the next few plants, then circle back to the first for a second round. That pause gives the initial water time to soak in and open pathways, so the second application travels deeper instead of running sideways. Aim everything at the base. Water at soil level, right where the stem meets the ground, and out to the drip line, which is the circle on the ground directly beneath the outer edge of the leaves, because that's where the active feeder roots live. The leaves don't drink. The petals certainly don't drink. Every drop that lands on foliage is a drop that either evaporates or invites disease. Down at the roots is where the entire transaction happens. And here's the counterintuitive companion rule that makes deep watering work. After you water deeply, allow the soil to dry out somewhat before the next session. Deep watering isn't deep watering if you do it every single day. That's just overwatering with extra steps. And constantly soggy soil suffocates roots and breeds rotten fungus. The rhythm you want is soak deeply, then wait. Depending on your heat, your soil, and whether your flowers are in ground or in pots, that might mean deep watering every 2 to 4 days for beds. That drying interval is what sends the signal to the roots. The water is down deep. Go find it. Know your soil, because your soil makes the rules. Two gardeners can follow identical watering advice and get completely different results, and the reason is almost always underfoot. Your soil type dictates how water moves, how long it stays, and how you need to adjust everything we've covered so far. Let's talk about the two extremes. Clay soil is dense and fine-textured. It absorbs water slowly, sometimes agonizingly slowly. But once it's wet, it holds that moisture for a long time. If you have clay, your challenge isn't retention, it's penetration. Water applied too fast just sheets off the surface. Clay gardeners need to water extra slowly, in pulses, giving the soil time to drink. The flip side is that clay can become waterlogged if you overdo it, and waterlogged clay around flower roots is a recipe for root rot. So with clay, slower application, longer intervals between waterings. Sandy soil is the opposite personality entirely. Water disappears into sand almost instantly, which feels satisfying, but it drains through and past the root zone just as fast. Sandy soil gardeners often need to water somewhat more frequently, or run their deep watering sessions longer, because the soil simply can't hold a large reserve. Most of us garden in something between those extremes, a loam leaning one direction or the other. And here's the good news that applies to everyone. Organic matter is the great equalizer. Compost worked into a bed helps clay drain better and helps sand hold moisture longer. It's one of the very few amendments that fixes both problems at once. Every autumn or spring that you add compost to your flower beds, you are making every summer watering session more effective. Want to know your soil type without a lab test? Grab a handful of moist soil and squeeze. If it forms a slick ribbon that holds together,